Hey guys, welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. Today, we're going to take a look at something a little bit different and most certainly something that is unique. This is the 2020 BMW M4 Heritage Series. And it's a one of 750 made of this particular model, and with this Laguna Seca blue on the exterior, it's one of 250 that you're going to find anywhere in the world with this particular color. I'd like to thank my friends at Lux Auto Concepts for supplying me this car today. They actually own this car. My friend John called me up and said, hey, why don't you come take a look at this and put it on your YouTube channel. So Lux is home of the light wrap, and let me tell you a little bit more about what they offer before we move on. Lux Auto Concepts was founded to give automotive enthusiasts a DIY vinyl tinting option for their vehicles' lights, with results that rival professional automotive paint. Advancements in LED lighting technology and new designs mean that automotive lighting has never looked cooler. Our tint films look at home on even the most expensive lights. And the most amazing thing is that it can be applied by anyone, from a DIYer to a professional. Learn more by visiting luxautoconcepts.net. Okay guys, let's talk about what's under the hood, but real quick before I do, one of the interesting things about a lot of the features on this car, such as opening the hood latch, and even the door handles on the interior, you have to pull on these things twice to get things to open. Very interesting. But as far as the hood goes, I like that feature. You don't have to actually go hunting for a hood latch. It just comes up automatically. And guess what? It has the gas shocks, those struts that I love so much on any car that I get the chance to review, because you just lift it up. You don't have to find any kind of a stand to mount or anything like that. The horsepower out of this engine is 444 horsepower and 406 foot-pounds of torque. That is a 0 to 60 of 3.8 seconds, which is actually really impressive in a car this size and this weight. I'll put all of the numbers right here on the screen so you know what those are. There are two transmission options available as well. You can opt for the 6-speed manual, something you don't get a lot in this day and age on any car, but it is available here on the M4. Or you can go with the 7-speed double clutch automatic. Okay guys, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that set this M4 apart. Now, while the hood may look like it's made of carbon fiber like the roof is, the roof actually is carbon fiber. This is actually a wrap. That's something that Lux specializes in, but it looks very nice and fits the design of the car perfectly. It actually matches this Laguna Seca blue perfectly. One thing about the front end that I think might be a little surprise, especially in the price point, what you would pay for a car like this, is that you don't have LED headlights. It actually comes with projector beam headlights. Something that might be of interest to those of you who may want to purchase a car like this. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I'll tell you what, definitely something that is a little surprising. While the hood features a wrap to make it appear to be made of carbon fiber, the roof is the real thing. On the carbon fiber roof, you will find the roof stripe, which features the available exterior colors for the M4 Heritage. Okay guys, just a quick little note of interest about these power mirrors here on the driver and passenger side. They're also folding mirrors, so if you need to get them out of the way for a tight spot, or you just want to maybe reduce the risk of somebody running by and bumping into that, there's a button here on the driver's side door that you can push, and that folds right in just like you see right there. And of course, it folds right back out when you push that button again. A nice little safety feature of interest for your side view mirrors. One of the areas of greatest added value, in my opinion, in the M4 is found in the 15.7 cubic feet of cargo space. On the trunk floor, you will find a cargo net that is anchored down by multiple points. And the really neat thing about that is anything you place under that net and then relatch the anchors in place will keep any items from rolling around or sliding around in the trunk area as you are driving down the road. And yes, if you watch me on a regular basis, I was indeed able to fit into the trunk of the M4. Okay guys, we're going to take a quick little look here at the interior, which obviously is very, very nice, very high-tech. It looks very sporty. It's what you would expect of the M4. Now, when you look at the seats, obviously they're very racy looking. They have a lot of bolstering here in the front, so if you track this car, maybe if you have a passenger in the passenger seat with you, you're both going to stay in place. I like that fact. And everything is fully adjustable. The shocks, the steering is adjustable, all the way the transmission works, everything, even the throttle. And you can play with all of that while you're driving down the road and actually feel the difference instantly as far as throttle response and all that good stuff goes. It's very impressive. The back seat in the M4 is actually somewhat large compared to a lot of other cars like that are in this class that I've seen, where basically it's just enough to not be considered a roadster to kind of keep your insurance from being too high. But in this particular case, in the M4, there is a decent amount of room back there, and there are a latch on each seat and a button so that you can move the seat back forward and actually use that button to use the power seat function to move the seat forward and allow your passengers to get in or out without a problem. But here's something interesting about that. While you can use that button on the back of the seat, if the passenger hops out and doesn't let the rear passengers out on that side, they can still do it themselves. But here's the interesting thing. The door has to be open on the driver and or passenger side for that feature to work. When you're driving down the road, let's just say that you had a couple of your kids in the back seat or one of their siblings in the front or something like that. They couldn't play a trick on the other sibling by moving that seat back and forth. Actually, that's kind of convenient and nice as well, but a good little safety feature there. Now, remember how I said that a lot of the features here on the M4 you have to pull twice, such as the release for the hood down here by the driver's footwell. You pull on that twice, but it's the same way on these latches to open the doors as well for the driver and passenger. Ever run into an emergency? You've got a button right here that you can basically kind of send your own SOS out. But it's interesting to see how that compartment, you push on that little button there and it just opens, you push the button and you can deal with whatever emergency you may have. Kind of a nice little interesting feature right there. Now, of course, you've got steering wheel mounted controls and very large shifter paddles. I like the size of these shifter paddles, and one thing I would love to see on any vehicle, and maybe it's out there, I just haven't seen it yet, but when you turn the steering wheel, it would be so nice if those shifter paddles just stayed in place, but they typically just follow the steering wheel. And yeah, there can be pros and cons to that, but I think for somebody such as myself who has a racing background, I would really like to have those stay in place so that if I need to change gears up or down, I can still do so without a problem while still moving the steering wheel. And there is function here available to store the settings on your M4, basically, depending on how you set up the shocks and suspension and steering and all that kind of stuff. But here's something to remember. You will have to actually store that yourself, because when you turn the ignition off, everything goes back to a default setting and it's not what you had before. But if you want to actually set some memory, some settings here, these buttons right here across the dashboard, and if you want to know what each one does, see how I'm just hovering my finger across right there? It will actually tell you what each one does if it's been set and has a memory setting behind it. But if you come to a setting you want to remember, you just hold that button down. And of course you change everything right here next to the shifter, and everything's very easy to use actually. And of course we've got the carbon fiber and all the carbon fiber accents here. But one thing that I do find very interesting here, if this is not something you're familiar with, you may too. When you go to lock or unlock the doors, say you have somebody who's going to get in on the passenger side and you want to unlock the door with your power locks. Notice I did this. I've already kind of shown you where it is. It's not on the driver's side door or the passenger side door. We would normally expect to find that button for your power locks. It's right here under the hazard button between the two middle air conditioning vents. Another very interesting little feature. Something else that's very interesting, typically in most modern day cars, you're going to have right here around the area where these cup holders are, in the front of the console area, you're going to have a couple of USB ports. Now, they're not actually there, but you do have a USB port. It's just located here inside of the console itself, in the back. Kind of an interesting location for that. And you do have a touch screen here. You can use your finger to swipe back and forth and go through different settings, or you can use the little switches here and everything. It's similar to a trackpad in a Mercedes. Something that I do like here that is very interesting, and we're going to give you a full demonstration of how this works, but let me just show you something. When you scroll over to My Vehicle, you're going to push the center of the dial here, and you'll see Technology in Action, and then you're going to go to Sport Displays. Now, I really like the fact that you can see a lot about what's going on with the car here. When you push on the gas pedal, when you give it more gas and you start going a little faster, it's going to show you how much horsepower you're using, among other features here. Something that I think is very, very interesting. And there's actually something else that we're going to show you in a little while when we do a test drive here with the M4 that you can have on your cell phone that will give you acceleration information, 0 to 60, all kinds of great stuff right on your phone as you actually film the drive. And so there are so many different interesting little points here that I think are fascinating, but one that you might find, if you're kind of like Monk, you may not like this very much. And it has to do with the dual zone climate control here, and that's the fact that it doesn't actually sync. So if your driver wants one temperature and your passenger wants the same temperature, they're both going to have to manually set that with the dials here. Not necessarily a big deal, but again, something that in the price point of this particular vehicle you would kind of expect to have there, so that as you change that here, if you want to sync those two together, it changes on both sides for the driver and passenger. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just a point that I find rather interesting. And one more thing I want to share here that is fascinating, and we'll put the information up on the screen to kind of tell you the best we could do as far as finding out what the production number of this particular model, the one of 750, actually is. It's not listed anywhere in the car, it's not on a sticker, but here on the passenger side, you see the word Heritage, and it tells you one of 750. Kind of a little bit deceptive in a way, because when you see that, you might think, oh, this was the very first one that they produced. That's not true, because every single one of these 750 total M4 Heritage models says the exact same thing, but this is most certainly not one of that 750 to be made. Okay guys, we're gonna get the M4 Heritage out on the road here, and we've already made some pretty good pulls here. You can hear the awesome downshifts. I mean, this thing just runs so good. I'm not even hardly into it. You can hear how great the engine sounds. And obviously, with the way the suspension is set up and the traction control and all that good stuff, it's so easy to drive. But of course, you can adjust the steering wheel however you see fit. The steering itself, I shouldn't say the steering wheel, but the steering itself for what you're comfortable with. You know, if you want it to feel like you're just on a nice road trip, then you can do that. If you want to feel like you're out on the track, you can do that. If you want to be in between, I mean, you can do that with everything here. The throttle, the shocks, everything. It is just absolutely amazing what all you can adjust. You know, I really wonder if years ago, if people weren't thinking about this kind of thing when it wasn't available, or whatever the case may have been, but now that it is available, it's hard to believe we ever lived without it. But we're here on my favorite road for test drives, where I always enjoy coming through this particular corner that we're about to hit to see how well a vehicle handles. And even though we've already been through here, I'm amazed at how easily it takes the corners right here. And I know Jose's holding the camera there, but I mean, you can tell it's not really throwing him around or anything like that. And you can see how steady the shot is. And of course, I'm going to downshift here doesn't take much. And I have the transmission is set up so that it shifts aggressively. But I am loving driving this car. And if you want a smoother ride, you can adjust the shocks, the suspension, everything accordingly, depending on what you want. And even in its most aggressive settings, it's really pretty comfortable. Of course, some of that probably depends on what you're used to driving every day, but for me personally, I'm very impressed. And I like the fact that you have a nice large windshield, and even though this is not a mid-engine vehicle, the hood isn't so long before it slopes down that it's not hard to see out of. It's very easy to see out of this car. I like that, so when you're out cruising around and driving spiritedly, we'll say, you can still see what's going on around you without a problem. Overall, I have to say, if this was something I was going to use as a daily driver, you could do that. You've got the space for whatever you need, and you know, you've got room in the back seat if you need to put a couple of passengers back there. Obviously, it's not a four-door, but you could actually daily drive this M4 if you wanted to. I'm sure there's probably people out there who do. I don't know. If you're an M4 owner, tell me down in the comments, how often do you drive? How many miles are you putting on your M4, no matter what year it may be? If it's a 2020 or 2018 or whatever the case is, tell me what your experiences have been. But just the overall driving experience, honestly, there's a lot of cars that I review here on Vehicle Visionary, and you know, it's fun and everything, but sometimes I'm just sad to take it home and not to my home.
30, 60, 30, 60, 30, 60.
Obviously, the 2020 BMW M4 Heritage is an amazing car. And there's so many amazing features and technology available today that make having something like this more fun. Some things that I didn't even cover in today's video. But obviously, this is a unique car, not only with the color and the overall number that has been produced, but just everything you can do with it that is so cool. Today's video obviously was a little special. Pluto Media Labs contributed tremendously. I'd like to thank my friend Jose for the drone shots and some of the great B-roll footage that we had in today's video. It's going to help me to step my game up a little bit more and make my videos better as we move forward here on Vehicle Visionary. And of course, Lux Auto Concepts. I want to thank them for sponsoring today's video and loaning me this awesome car. And I hope you've enjoyed today's video, guys. If you did, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and leave me a comment and let me know that you were here. That is, unless you're a troll. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next time.